All right, folks, decided to go live tonight. I told you there was some things coming down the path. This Duke thing is going to have reverberations all through college football. It's just been announced today that Duke is suing the quarterback, Darian Mensah, who is a terrific quarterback. I mean, this dude's really, really good. He wore out the ACC last year with, was it 34 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, threw for almost 4,000 yards, and being paid really well. All right. He got paid $4 million last year. At the time, he was the second highest paid quarterback, I think. And he's got another contract for this year for $4 million that he's walked away from. And Duke has said, no, you're not walking away from this, young man. You know, we signed you to an $8 million deal when nobody was paying that kind of money, and we expect you to honor it. And he's pretty much made it clear, nah, I don't think I will. So we're going to get into this and talk about it. But I think this is a watershed moment for college sports. That's really all you can call it, because this cannot continue. You can't have organized sports like this where you have these transfer portal dates and have somebody at the last second walk away after having a contract signed and announcing. He announced he was coming back, did all that, and they've got everything planned on him being quarterback. They've spent all their money on him. This business that Miami's going to pay them off in some sort of buyout deal, that doesn't solve the problem for Duke. You've taken their quarterback and they spent all this time, effort, and money based on that. And now there's nobody anywhere close equivalent available. And of course, Miami did this because they waited to the last minute. They missed out on several quarterbacks, didn't get them. So they've taken their problem and given it to Duke. Said, our problem at Miami is now your problem, and we're going to take your quarterback and solve our problem. That's not going to work in college football if we want to have organized sports and all of that. And back when I was covering the House settlement, I took so much grief over this, and I kept telling everybody, I said, it's not going to hold, folks. It's not going to hold. It's not going to make it. And man, I was like, oh, you don't want it to. No, I wanted them to do collective bargaining because I knew that would hold. Why do I know that? Because it's held for decades in the NFL and the NBA and the NHL. You know, I was willing to go ahead and accept this is pay for play. All right, this is professional sports now. I'm not thrilled about it. You know, I've got some traditional thoughts about, you know, I liked it the way it was, but I also knew after the Alston case, when the Supreme Court voted 9-0, that it was over. Okay. That was back in 2021. And when the judges were all going, we can't wait for the next test case to come up here because you think we hit you with this. Wait till you come up another time. Calling the NCAA a criminal investigation, a criminal institution similar to the mob. It's like, holy crap. When you see judges talk like that, they're furious. And they think what the NCAA has been doing over the last several decades is just awful. So when you see that, you know all the courts underneath that are going to follow that case, which is what they're doing. Now, you do have contracts on this. There's a contract here. And yeah, let's get into what's happening. Let me add this to the stage, and we'll go through this a little bit. This is on CBS Sports. It says Duke's filed a lawsuit against the Blue Devils quarterback, Darian. It was filed in Durham Superior Court, so it was filed in North Carolina, and it talks about, let me get into what they said, and this is pretty interesting as you read this. It says, contracts mean something. Mensah's action violate numerous provisions of his contract with Duke and disregard his promises and obligations to the university. And as Mensah agreed, when he signed his contract, such breaches cause Duke irreparable harm for which there is no adequate remedy at law. And in the event of such breach, Duke is entitled to an injunctive, they want an injunction, or equitable relief. Now, Mensah's agency, which is called Young Money, they, I guess they thought it was okay to walk away from this. And they feel like the lawsuit shouldn't have been filed in the first place for a variety of reasons. Now, obviously, let me get rid of this for a second. They had no problem signing that contract, negotiating it for $8 million. You know, I'm sure when that money was coming in and he was getting paid really well, they loved it. And he wouldn't have agreed to it if he didn't love it. I mean, think about 15 months ago or whenever this contract was consummated. $8 million, folks, 2 years. And this kid was coming out of Tulane, and he was a good quarterback, but he wasn't, he hadn't blown up the world with it. He was just really good. But he wasn't, the next great quarterback in the world that we didn't think. And all of a sudden he gets this great contract at Duke for $8 million. So they were fine with it then. Now it's like, oh, well, this contract shouldn't be held up, or, because something better came along at the last second. Okay. It came along at the last second because Miami's desperate and they want to get back to the Natty, and it's going to be hard to do that without a great quarterback. So they thought, oh, well, let's just take Duke's quarterback and leave them Crete. What the attorney said, you can't restrain the movement of athletes from one school to another. There's no provision in this agreement that removes the requirement that Duke put the player in the portal within 48 hours, et cetera. So there's no harm, irreparable harm, and there's a mechanism in the contract, shows how they can be compensated, et cetera. Now, they tried to get an injunction, and I don't believe they got one, but there's a hold off until they get another judge, because the judge that's there that actually took a look at this is a Duke fan and has season tickets and all that. So he had to recuse himself. And so they've got a date of February 2nd to have an injunctive hearing to find out if there's going to be an injunction. And Duke doesn't want to put him in the portal and allow him to transfer. So this thing is getting ready to hit the fan. Now, I know your question's got to be, where is the College Sports Commission? NCAA made this big deal in the House settlement. We're going to put this group together called the College Sports Commission, and they're going to rule this thing. And they're going to make sure nothing like this happens. And they're going to use Deloitte and NIL Go to go through everything over $600, which obviously Miami took that real serious. So did LSU, Texas Tech, Texas. But basically, if you've got Texas in your name, you ignored it because they're spending $40 million plus. And we know how much Lane Kiffin cared about that. So it's getting real messy. Let's get back into what they said here on some of this later on. They also talked about the DeMond Williams. That was LSU, we believe. That's what everybody thinks, that he tried to that's why he almost blew it with Sam Levitt. If you'll remember, DeMond Williams up in Washington, that was going to be the test case. And then Washington threw a fit, threatened to sue everybody and their brother. And that's what's happening now with Duke. But see, I thought that was going to be the test case, which would have been perfect because Lane would have been smack dab in the middle of that. But that needs to be investigated. Where is the College Sports Commission, which is just a false front for the NCAA? The NCAA got tired of getting kicked in the teeth. So they came up with this phony front called the College Sports Commission. And that way they could kick them around because they'd had enough. And so now you've got this going on. Where are they? Where is the College Sports Commission? Where are you? Yeah, you're not around, are you? So here's the thing. This thing's going to get real ugly real fast, and this is the beginning of it. Dalton, tell him.
It'll get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, Dalton knows.
Roadhouse.
Yeah, so this is going to get real ugly coming over the next week or so, and I'm going to be here to cover it because this is what I've been waiting for. This is right in my wheelhouse. First of all, it's going to force the NCAA, aka College Sports Commission, to actually do something, because if they don't step in here, it's going to be unbelievable, because you can just take anybody's quarterback at any time, really. I mean, forget the transfer. It means there is no transfer portal. Then you've got the Prince Will guy at Ole Miss that there's heavy tampering allegations on that. And we know where that's pointed. So just look for things to get real ugly here in a little bit. And I'm here for it because it's got to happen. You know, there are teams out there that are following the rules. I think Alabama's following the rules. That's why they're very unhappy. They've lost so many players. I think there's a bunch of teams out there. I know Tennessee is. They've made a big deal out of it. And as a matter of fact, Danny White, the athletic director, came out and said there's tons of teams that are cheating really badly. And he didn't name them. I wish he would have. That would have been gutsy, but we probably know who they are. I think it's pretty obvious without going into too much of it. So something's got to give on this. So Miami, even if you're a Miami fan, if you think this is good or you think this is okay, you shouldn't. You should not think this is okay. You should not take another team's quarterback, ruin it for their fan base. They've spent all this money, time, and effort, and they have no way to fix it. Okay, the portal's closed, and they're rules followers. So if you're a rules follower, you can't fix this. Your quarterback's leaving, and you could have taken that $4 million and put it into another quarterback. You could have at least done that. Now it's too late. Now all the best quarterbacks have been taken, and Miami's put you in a ditch. Now, if you're a Miami fan and you think that's okay, and you're like, yeah, that's okay, we're just, as long as we get what we want. That's not a way to, that's not okay. It's not. And I'm not going to, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it is.
Message.
Yeah, there's your message. It's not okay. So we'll see what happens with this. I expect it to get real ugly. And what was the name of their company again? Let me get back into that. What is it? Young Money. There is one positive in the deal. They went with Young Money. Fortunately, they didn't go with the other big-time agency. This is the worst one by far. Is this one that fortunately Mensa didn't get with? Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. That's the agency that would really make this difficult. And I keep expecting them to pop up and start causing some problems for some teams. They've got a lot of players, so expect that agency to pop in here pretty soon and cause all kinds of problems. But at least it's Young Money. So we'll see how that plays out. But, man, I'm telling you, this is a mess. Let me get into some of the comments. I'm sure y'all have got plenty to say about this, but I knew I had to go live with this because it's breaking, and it's such a huge deal. It really is a monster deal. No, it's not actually a 13-year-old. I think it's I want to say Young Money is isn't that Little Wayne or something? Seems like let me get rid of this and I'll check for you. I want to say that's a big time rapper. Let me see. Who is Darian Mensa's agent? Young Money representing him, involved. Let's see. Darian Mensa. Let's see. I think y'all can see that. Yeah. Let me see who that is. Young Money. I thought it was some sort of a rapper or something. Tulane. I don't know. It's somebody significant is involved in that. Some big time entertainer, but I'm not 100% sure. It says somebody says here all damages are anticipated, so deal with it. What is? Oh, you're talking about if they now what they want to do is have arbitration because that is written into the contract. But this is a huge mess for college football across the board. And this is another reason why they're going to have to go to collective bargaining. This is just happening quicker than I knew that the House settlement would not hold. There was no way that it would. But you would think contracts, state and there in North Carolina, there are laws for state contracts. So that could be a problem right there. But Duke has to sue. They have no choice. They don't have a plan B. How can you have a plan B when you've got to spend so much money on a quarterback and the guy leaves literally at the last second? And you're just sitting here going, I don't have a starting quarterback. I had a starting quarterback that I'd put all this money in and everything was fine. He said he was coming back. We'd signed the contract. Everything's done. And then at the last second, Miami comes in and says, no, you don't. No, you don't. He's our quarterback now, which is what everybody thinks. And I think Miami's willing to spend up to $10 million on him. I don't think they're going to pay him directly that amount of money. I think it's just they feel like if we buy Duke out, again, buying Duke out doesn't solve the problem for Duke. Money, it's not going to solve it. That's just, it's a very, very messy, ugly situation. And normally I take the player side on a lot of this. I can't take the player side on this. He's 21 years old. He's an adult. He had representation. He had an attorney. He had a agency that got this deal done for him. They did a great job. $8 million over 2 years was a fantastic deal. And it's only because Miami's desperate that they could come in and offer something a lot more. And I really feel like the future of college football is on the line here, that if something's not done, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. I mean, Dalton had it right. There's no question. And Miami is going to be dealing with some crap coming up. I almost feel like the NCAA, no matter what, they're going to have to make this painful for them. Even if they can't stop them, they're going to have to make it painful for them, because this can't go on.
I'm just curious. I saw you shuffling your checks with your right hand. Can you do that with both hands?
No.
Can't do it with both hands.
No, sir.
Yeah, I mean, they're just going to have to. They're going to have to make it so difficult on them that other teams will be like, well, it's so messy. And the next probably the next 6 months, it's going to be rumble time. Matter of fact, I got a clip for that too.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
I've always enjoyed that. I don't know what it is about that. That just gets you fired up for something. And that's what it's going to be. We're going to see a ton of litigation. It's going to be incredibly interesting to see how this – I want to know if the contracts will hold up. That interests me to no end. This is so in my wheelhouse. This is the type of thing that intrigues me to no end. The House settlement did too. Can these contracts be held? Because I would think they could. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me how an adult who's represented by an attorney and an agency and a university sign a contract, mutually agree, sign it, and money's been exchanged. How can you walk away from that? That's super important. That intrigues me on another level. So I'll be watching that very closely. The biggest thing I want to know is what this College Sports Commission is going to do. And I can't believe they haven't stepped in yet. You know, they brought in a guy that had run, what was it? He had run the Major League part of the union and all this kind of stuff. So you would think he's got to be all over this. Where are they? I've heard nothing from the College Sports Commission, Deloitte, anything on any of this whatsoever. I mean, they've gone silent. So what's going to happen with this? Because, I mean, you've got rogue behavior like you can't believe. I mean, Lane, and of course, you know, Lane's got his lawyers all lined up like an offensive line. He's probably got 5 of them ready to go because he knows they're coming for him. There's no question. Miami, they're coming for you. The question is, can they do anything about it? That's like I said, this is the test case. And you kind of figured it would be a quarterback. I thought it was going to be Damon for sure. But now it looks like it's going to be Darian. And the way this plays out will have a huge role as to where we head. If he's able to leave and walk away from the contract and play for Miami, then the House settlement's done. Okay, the House settlement's dead. It's done. It means nothing. It's just a worthless piece of paper. And people can follow those rules if they want, but it's not important. And nobody's going to tell me it's important because it's not. If they're able to force the quarterback to play for $4 million, poor guy, then maybe something can be salvaged out of this. And if they go and they deal with these teams that are clearly breaking the rules that they signed up for, they signed up for it. So if they can do something there, maybe the House settlement can survive for a while. But if not, if the quarterback can leave and go play for Miami, and Prince Will winds up at LSU, and LSU can do whatever they want, spending whatever they want, Texas Tech can do whatever, then you'll see collective bargaining probably next year. I don't know how you wouldn't, because otherwise there's no other way to go about this, because you're going to have the cheaters and the non-cheaters. And the NCAA, the big problem in the NCAA, they lost their teeth. Nobody's afraid of them anymore. Ever since the Michigan thing, Michigan having 6 level 1 violations and got no sanctions, didn't lose a scholarship, didn't lose a bowl game. All they did was get a little fine, which it's a little fine for them. Now, it's great for the NCAA, $30 million. Hey, man, they can use that to pay big salaries and walk around with their little NCAA logo on it and, spend that money like crazy and see how important I am. NCAA. It doesn't mean what it used to, but they can at least use that money. But as far as a deterrence, there was no deterrence in that at all. If you can blatantly cheat the way Michigan did and have 6 level 1s and cheat the entire conference of the Big Ten, cheat teams outside the Big Ten, and win a national title, nobody's going to give a crap about this because here you might be able to have something to stand on. A judge may say, this house settlement doesn't mean anything because the players that are at college now, they were not represented in that. All these freshmen that came in, these sophomores, they were not represented. Okay, they didn't have a union. They didn't have a union rep. They didn't vote on it. So how can you hold them to it? That's where, collective bargaining, it's a pretty simple deal. You have a union, you become a member of it, and the settlement between the union and the universities would be met, and then the union brings it back to the players and say, vote on it. And they vote, and then it's ironclad then. That's why you don't see teams go in and just pluck players out just whenever they want. No, the contracts are held. Now, you might have somebody sit out, but they're not getting paid. So they're not going to sit out very long unless they're just stubborn. But they can't just go, oh, well, I'm playing for the Raiders today, but San Diego offered me an extra $5 million. So I forget this contract. I'm going over to this contract. You can't do that in the NFL. NFL will pound you for that. And they can. With this, we don't know. We don't know. Most likely, though, I can tell you there are plenty of teams that don't think you can do anything. I don't think LSU's worried about it a bit. I really don't. They're down there partying. They've got the number 1 transfer portal. Hall, they have hauled him in like you can't believe. Just great player after great player. They're down there trying to get a $3 million offensive tackle. They've already spent $10 million on quarterbacks. They brought in 2 quarterbacks. One's over $6 million. The other one was the 5-star from USC that's now going to be a redshirt freshman. He's probably $3, maybe $4 million. He was number 6 in the country, and Sam Levitt was number 1. How do you get the number 1 and the number 6, and now you're going to spend $3 million here and $3 million there? Their defense, they've brought in some monsters that are big-time payments. They're so over that 20.5, it's not even funny. And they'll probably get a lot. Here's the thing. If they get away with it, I can tell you they're going to win with that team. LSU's talent level is through the roof. I've looked at some of these players in the portal. It's frightening. The level of talent they've put together, it's going to be something. It's better than Miami had this year. I can tell you that. And Miami was loaded for bear. Those defensive linemen that you watched last night, woo! And those linebackers, and they had a safety that used to play for Tennessee. They will pound you. And that defense has been something this year. And Carson was, what was he, $5 million? I think they paid him. He played well all year. People don't like him. I think he must be a bit of a butthole. But he played well. He had that one bad – it wasn't a horrible pass, but the timing was just so unfortunate. And that's what happens when you get in the last seconds of a game, you're running out of time, and you start doing desperate things, you make mistakes. That's a pass he would not have made normally, but, that's what happens when you get behind and you were dominated most of the game. Great game, though. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I congratulate Indiana on that victory. And that should make everybody feel good about the fact that if Indiana can win a national title, anybody can. And I know they've got money behind them, but it's not stupid money. Indiana's not out there spending money like the big dogs. They're just they're playing money ball. That's what they're doing. They're taking players that other people don't want, and they're making it work. This guy steals bases, and this guy's good at hitting home runs, and they put them together and somehow made it work. Kirk Signetti, whew, talking about a guy that he'll get a statue in Indiana. You can count on that. They've never won anything in 100 years in football, and they won everything this year. They beat a team they hadn't beat Ohio State in 31 years. 31 years, and they beat them to win the Big Ten, which is just blows my mind. And the national championship, and went 16-0. It's the greatest team accomplishment that I've seen since probably the United States hockey team when they beat the Russians and won the gold medal, which is still one of the greatest things that's ever happened. It's up there with that of what they've accomplished, which is a heck of a statement. I still remember that. That was just the most wonderful thing. A lot of people forget they had to play Sweden after that. It's like, please don't lose to Sweden. And I think, or is it Denmark? But they wound up winning and got the gold medal. So let me get back in the comments and see if I've missed anything here. Oh, here we go. Here's something. It's owned by a rap. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So I thought it was Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne. Now, what was it? He does something. Okay. Here's the thing, Lil Wayne. I don't think this is okay. This walking away from the contract, but we'll find out. I mean, they're going to exercise their legal rights in court and find out if he can walk away from this or not. If he can, Duke is in a terrible spot. I mean, their season's ruined, and that's a shame to have your season ruined 8 months out. That's just such a shame. Thank you for that, Jack, for the super chat. That's not right. You should not be able to ruin somebody's season 8 months out. That is just, it's one thing if somebody gets injured. It's another thing if you just come in there and I tell you, Washington almost had the same thing done to them by LSU with DeMond Williams. It would have wrecked their season. Jed Fish was freaking out. And I'm sure the Duke head coach is losing his mind. I mean, man. And Duke was coming on. Duke won the conference. What'd they finish, 9-5? They didn't get in the playoff because they had lost too many games in the season, but they wound up winning the conference there in the conference championship, which is pretty cool. And they're going into this with their Mensa guy thinking, man, we got a legitimate chance to win it again, and maybe we'll get in the playoff this time. Now that's been wrecked. It's destroyed, totally destroyed for them, and that's just so wrong. It's so wrong. I hate it for the Duke fans, who are some of the best fans in the world. They're some of the kindest, best fans in the world, Duke are. And I'm glad they're fighting. Good for them for fighting for this because it's not right. Miami doesn't get to just push everybody around in the ACC. And I can't believe that, I can believe that Jim Phillips, their commissioner, is not doing anything because that sucks. He should do something about this, but he won't because he's scared to death of Miami. Miami's their cash cow. And the ACC is so splintered right now. So many teams are going to leave in a few years when they're able to, and I believe it's 2030 they can leave for $70 million. And FSU's they're counting their money. They're going into the couch cushions. They're finding money everywhere they can find because they want to go to the Big Ten or the SEC. I kind of don't understand. I understand wanting to leave the ACC because you're not going to get as much TV money, but you're also going to be playing a lot of really tough teams in those two conferences. So I don't know. I struggle with that, but that's what's going to happen. And also North Carolina is going to leave too. You can count on that. They're gone because they're going to get a big time offer from the Big Ten. And the TV contract is up in 2030 for Big Ten, whereas the SEC is 2033. So the Big Ten is going to get the pick of the litter out of the ACC because of that. And it's probably going to work out really well for the Big Ten. I wonder how big that conference is going to get. They've already got, don't they have 18 teams right now? So if they pick up FSU and North Carolina and Miami, and maybe they'll probably go to 22, I would think. They'll probably pick up 3 or 4 before the SEC is really ready to pick up any, because we won't have a new TV rights contract. So Big Ten's going to get what they want out of this. And that's probably going to work out really good for FSU. They'll end up getting their money back in a few years because I think you get 70 plus million a year with the Big Ten, whereas I think the ACC is in the 30s. So they're missing out on about 25 to 30 million a year being in the ACC. That's why the teams are going to leave. The TV rights money in the ACC is so different from Big Ten. That's the one thing I'll say about Tony Petitti, even though he's really disappointed me on this 16-team deal. He got a great TV rights money deal. He did a really good job with that. He got him some big money. Now he's had to deal with all this big noon thing, the big noon kickoff where Ohio State has to play every game at noon. They take their biggest draw and stick them at noon every single Saturday, which if you're a morning person, that's fine. But if you're not, it stinks because you can't tailgate. What are you going to tailgate at 6 a.m? It doesn't work out too good. Yeah, well, they'll get a salary cap if they do the collective bargaining. They'll get a salary cap, and it'll get negotiated between the union and the universities. I don't know how the NCAA will play in that. Maybe they'll represent the universities because the universities are the NCAA, believe it or not. I know people don't realize that the members are really the NCAA. It's just the NCAA is kind of, they got power hungry for a long time and just decided they could do whatever they wanted. And then they found out after the Alston case that they have no power. They are the paper tiger of all paper tigers. As a matter of fact, a paper tiger walked by an NCAA the other day and went, damn, that's how paper they are. So big mess. Anyway, wanted to come on and talk about this for a little bit. Y'all been asking me to do some more live. I'm going to try to do that some this offseason when something big hits like this. This is huge news. I know it's flying under the radar a little bit, but this is a monster event because it's going to affect college football in such a significant way. This is the test case. It needed to be a quarterback. That way everybody would pay attention to it. And had Lane been in the middle of it, had it been the DeMond, then people would have really paid attention. And of course, Lane would have loved it because he loves attention. But I wanted to talk about this, and I'll be following up on it. If y'all want to hit the subscribe button on this, I'm going to be all over it. This is another thing that I really enjoy covering. I like the legalities of it, and I want to see how it plays out because it intrigues me to no end, to know how this is going to play out. I want to know. Anyway, we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay. Thanks for tuning in.